So therefore, it is with much pleasure that I'm able to introduce David and his recently published novel, The Sheltered Life of Betsy Parker. This book particularly hit home for me as I have a son who, since a young child, has always struggled to fit into a society that is not always understanding or accepting of differences. Thus, I found I could truly relate to Betsy and her family's daily worries and fears, their overwhelming feeling of wanting to protect her at all costs. The Sheltered Life of Betsy Parker elegantly tells the story of immense love, compassion, and in it, it explores some fundamental truths about how humans behave and how they should behave. This is an amazingly done first novel. I look forward to reading future novels by David. So without further ado, I welcome David to come up here, and he already is, and talk about his first published novel, the revised edition, with us. So.
To give you an idea of what my book sounds like, yes, the minister grinned again. She will be. Betsy looked up at Reverend Ben-Hur and made a determined, eager smile once again. "Hey," Betsy cried, "I feel happy again already. I will make God happy. I will help God finish his puzzle." "That's good to hear," the minister smiled. "Betsy, in addition to you being a piece in God's puzzle, God has also granted you blessings. These blessings are everything and everyone you have that make you happy, including your belongings, your family, your friends, even your body. No matter what happens, you will always have your blessings, and nobody can take them away from you, ever." "Will I always have you?" Betsy asked. "Will you come again?" "Yes, I will," the minister smiled. "I promise to always be here for you and support you in every way that I can." Reverend Ben-Hur turned to Betsy's parents. "I think I have helped your daughter as much as I can today." "Thank you, Ben," Megan smiled. "It was lovely having you in our home. I just know today's meeting is going to help Betsy greatly." "I might be able to help you in other ways," Ben explained. "I will arrange for a community or congregation fund for your family and pray nightly that people will feel more compassion for Betsy as the years progress, and that Betsy will find her way in this world." The minister turned once more to Betsy. "Bye, Betsy," he smiled. "It was lovely seeing you. Thank you for listening to me and feeling a sense of encouragement." "Oh!" Betsy cried. She dashed down the hallway into her room and retrieved the chocolate Santa her parents had given to her for Christmas. "This is for you," Betsy smiled, handing the Santa to the minister. "For me?" Reverend Ben-Hur cried. "Oh, Betsy, you shouldn't. That's your Christmas present your parents gave you." "I want you to have it," Betsy smiled, continuing to hold the Santa in her outstretched hand. "Well, thank you very much," smiled Ben, taking the Santa. "I'm sure it will taste lovely." "Carl, Megan," grinned Ben, facing Betsy's parents. See you later. Try to make it out to church sometime. We will, the parents beamed as the minister left. The minister's visit.
minister, which in some sense illuminates the whole structure, the metaphor, the themes in the book, you know, which I really, really appreciate your frankness about that. And then you went on to include the the visit from the minister. Is that like in some sense, an afterword of the afterword? You know, is there something more? I'm sorry.
I just added it as part of the story. I think I realized that at the end of the previous chapter, I sort of leave Betsy in a bit of a sort of a darkened mood because she has just found out on Christmas Day, of all days, what her affliction means and just how different she is. And so I decided to add the next chapter, which is where the minister comes and reassures her about all this. And I think another reason for adding that chapter is in the original edition, I had Reverend Ben Herb come to perform Betsy and Mark's wedding, but he kind of just pops into the story out of nowhere at that point. So it just seemed necessary to introduce him at an earlier point in Betsy's life.
But you were saying something pretty deep there.
Yeah.
What were you trying to, what do you think you were saying in that chapter?
I think I'm trying to say that everybody is included in God's plan, even and sort of especially the people who face difficulties and prejudice from others.
Mm-hmm.
So the minister becomes kind of a spokesperson for inclusivity.
Yes.
You know, David, it's I scan read the chapter, you know, the day that we met with Darren, but you know, when you read it out loud, it's a very beautiful articulation of the doctrine of grace. Yeah, like there's good theology there.
Good.
Yeah. And then, how'd you ever come up with that image of the puzzle?
I think I got it from sort of a children's book I remember reading when I was little that was called Who is God? There's one part of the story in which it describes God as being this great big puzzle that we humans are trying to figure out. So I kind of turned that metaphor on its head and made it the humankind as being the great big puzzle.
It's a powerful image because
that is God's design.
Yeah, because no matter how beautiful a puzzle is, if there's a piece missing, you're always going to notice the piece missing.
Yes.
Right? So that's brilliant. I'm hoping I don't visit everybody and tell them to come to church at the end. I'm assuming I inspired that a little bit. I'm really honored by that. Thank you. And you know, to have a name like Ben Hur and be a minister, like that'd be like so cool. Yeah. It made me start to think maybe I should change my name and look for something dramatic so I could be like, you know, Reverend Ben Hur. That's great. That's awesome. Well, how did you choose that?
Herb.
Herb. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not.
But it's but it still conjures up
But it's
the other words, yeah,
Yeah.
with a little bit of a comic twist.
Where did you get that name, Ben Hur?
I think I based it on the minister who performed my parents' wedding.
Okay. And who was that?
Jim Herb.
Brilliant. See, I just heard Ben Hur and I went right to the biblical movie and
Yes.
David, I want to get back to Harry Potter, mate. Do you have a favourite character in those books or characters?
I think I like Harry the best because he's basically the hero who is the focus of the whole series, and he's going through all these adventures in every book that will ultimately lead him to defeat the villain Voldemort.
I have to ask this because I read the book and I was shocked at the ending. I have to ask you, David, why you had Betsy die at the end.
Oh, a bit of a spoiler.
Sorry.
Well,
Has people not read the book here? Oh. Sorry about that.
well,
but that's okay because in books people either die or live. So it's
Exactly.
I'll say that the reason for that is because even though it's tragic that happens, I think the reader needs to sort of examine more about why and how she dies instead of that she dies and it's all horrible and sad. She dies at the end saving these two basically villains, the parents of her husband. And these parents are two very, very strict, Bible-thumping, hardcore Christians who think Betsy is just some evil woman possessed by the devil. And they're about to get run over in the end. And she pushes them out of the way, saving them, but sacrificing herself. And while it is noble to sacrifice oneself to save a friend, it is just extraordinary to sacrifice oneself to save an enemy. And if you look at sort of a biblical reference, that's pretty much what Jesus did on the cross. There's a metaphor in Betsy's death at the end for Jesus' sacrifice. Jesus died on the cross to save humanity. Betsy died on the road to save Mr. and Mrs. Turner.
Save them from
being,
being killed. But is there more that you're hoping that we'll see in that?
And I think another, I'd have to spoil more to answer that question.
I've already
Don't do it.
enough.
Okay. After Betsy dies, there is this nephew that Mark has, who is being, his father is Mark's brother, and his brother, Roger, is pretty much as bad as the parents, and he's also the the character who runs Betsy over, but he has so much contempt for Betsy that he leaves the scene. And that is partly their own son going to prison, and the fact that they were saved by Betsy is what finally makes the parents sort of come to rethink their life. And there's also another issue in that it makes Mark's own friends come to see Betsy in a better way, because when they first heard that Mark was forming a relationship with Betsy, they actually they laughed at him, and Mark unfriended them as a result. But when in the last chapter, when there's the funeral, Mark's friends come around and they say, "Mark, we're very proud of how she sacrificed herself. We looked up the artwork she had made and it was stunning. We came to Betsy's funeral to tell you that we are all very sorry we teased you in the cafeteria." And so Mark gets his friends back again as well. And the nephew, the brother's son, also gets a better home because the wife divorces Roger.
And you said that like Betsy saved the parents from parents dying. So basically, did she save the parents from themselves in a way?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Any more questions?
David, just a little on your method. Do you write a bit every day, or do you write when you're inspired? Do you do it by hand? Do you use a computer?
I use a computer. When I first started making this book, I actually wrote about 2,000 words a day, and I completed the first draft in just 6 weeks. I'd written out a full-length synopsis on my computer beforehand to sort of create the blueprints of the story, and then I just went from there.
And how long have you been working on it? Like, when did you start until now? So 2 years, 3 years?
I started writing the first draft on July 11th, 2014, and then I completed the first draft on August the 22nd. And I'd written the outline, I think it was about April or May of the same year.
David, I was wondering, when you're writing it, when you're thinking of your audience and who's going to read this book and what they're going to get out of it, did you have any idea that it might be a good book for families that had, say, someone who had autism, that it may be a way for either the person who had autism, a good resource for them or a resource for the family? Were you thinking along that lines at all?
Not really, but I think that could be a really good way that this book can be used. And I've had other readers like Darren and Marisa say the same thing.
Part of the power of the book is, the idea of someone that can't wear any clothing triggers a whole bunch of stuff with people. But it really pushes the question of what it's like to be different.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so you didn't pick a safe metaphor. Like, somebody that had two thumbs or something. I'm being silly, but you really pushed.
Yes, I did, and I think I did that on purpose to make readers really start thinking outside the box.
Yeah, it's very brave of you.
Yeah. And there's another excerpt in the afterword where I talk about that as well, that I think I'll read for you. As the author, I am aware that I could cope with the struggle of the heroine through a real existing disability, such as blindness, deafness, or being mentally or physically impaired. These conditions do present a struggle for those who suffer them and could potentially trigger a storyline. However, I believe that the exotic, unique condition that affects Betsy would draw the reader into Betsy's world all the more because her condition remains a condition that the reader can only imagine and presents the optimal struggle for the heroine, not only because she is alone with it, but it's hard for her to even have people respect her because of it.
Mm.
There's another short excerpt that kind of relates to that as well, from when Mark visits Betsy's nudist resort, Sunny Palms, for the first time. She says, "A lot of the time, I feel even worse off than the disabled people of this planet. The blind, the deaf, those with mental or physical impairments. At least they have respect, care, and compassion from society. They can take comfort in knowing that there are other people like them and that they're not alone. Not alone because they're cared for, and not alone because there are others who also have their affliction. But me, I am truly alone. There is no one else on earth who has my affliction, and most people are so absorbed in thinking that nakedness is indecent that they don't give a hoot about me. I feel like a stranger, a ghost, bound to the face of the earth, hearing of so many people living successful, happy lives, while I am always shut out, alone, even though I can see, hear, and use my body perfectly well."
It's really beautifully written.
Yeah.
David, I don't know if everyone here, but please share the story of the man in India that you learned about.
Actually, just last winter, it was January the 16th, the date that I had set as Betsy's birthday to be exact. I read about this man in India called Subal Barman on the website, a news item on the website clothesfree.com, in which he has actually been, he's a farmer, and he has actually been living nude for about 40 years because clothing, even though it's not actually fatal like Betsy's condition, it feels very, very painful and sensitive on his skin.
And that was, you found out after you read the book? Or
Yes.
wrote the book, I mean.
Yes.
and the coincidence with Betsy's birthday. Explain that again?
Yeah.
Yeah, the date that I read about it was January the 16th, and when I wrote the book, I had Betsy as being born on January 16th.
Whoa,
That's a little crazy.
synchronicity.
Uh,
David, just a brief sketch without spoiler alerts. Your next book, do you have one in the offing?
I think I'll launch my book, my science fiction novel, The Stolen Treasure, next.
Oh.
I actually wrote it back when I was 16, and I think now that I'm more mature and have had more experience with writing, I think it's about time that I prepare it and polish it up and get it out to readers.
And you got something else in the works as well, don't you?
Yeah,
Enough to keep you occupied for a while?
I think so.
David, I'm fascinated by the ability that you have to write music for your book. How do you do that? Like, what's the kind of...
I actually wrote Don't Drown Fly for a school composing assignment.
Okay.
I thought that a neat piece to write would be a piece that that illustrated a part of my own writing.
Does the tune kind of come into your head, or do you...
Yes.
Yeah. And then you put it on and you transpose it into music?
Mm-hmm. And the second piece that I played after I read about the visit from the minister was, that was actually something that I decided to do today. It was, I had it as being called Memories. I wrote it about 2 years ago, and when I came in today and I read the excerpt from chapter 6 and played Don't Drown Fly, and then I read the excerpt from chapter 9, I thought it would be fitting to play a musical piece for that as well, and I just thought that the most fitting piece of mine would be Memories, and I just changed the title to The Minister's Visit.
So like you just pulled that, like you'd written that some time ago,
Yes.
and then on the fly, so to
Yes.
speak, you just kind of pulled that out and renamed it and fit it into that tune, into that chapter.
So it gives a kind of a, well, yeah, it's much more articulate program for listening to the song than Memories. Memories is very, very generic, but yeah, given that chapter, I mean, it gives you a...
See, in my mind, I named it Grace. Like, the grace of God. Like because you read that chapter and the doctrine of grace was so strong for me, as you played that, I was kind of hearing that in there. So that's pretty fascinating. I'm impressed. Whoa.
What's a tip, because I like writing myself, but what do you do when you've been like inspired and writing for a bit, but then you just get stuck and have like no inspiration for it?
Well, that happened for a little while when I was writing that synopsis out. There was a point where when Mark's parents reacted so adversely to Mark seeing Betsy, it felt like I had hit a dead end in writing the synopsis of the story, so I just put it aside for a few weeks and then looked at that final situation I had come to and just kept on writing.
Trying to do
So
that.
I think that's how I would deal with writer's block. I just put it aside and let my ideas just stew for a while.
After that first draft, David, how many revisions did you do?
Until I launched my first edition
To this one?
to this one. You mean between my first draft and this?
Yeah.
More than I can count.
Have you shared the story of the cover with me? Like how the cover came to be?
Some of my readers have asked what the cover means, and I tell them that it's about Betsy having rescued a fly from a cup of lemonade she was drinking.
Who did the cover for you?
A classmate called Gurav Shah. I was hoping that he would also design a cover for The Stolen Treasure, but I haven't seen anything lately, and I've lost touch with him. He won't even answer his phone or email anymore.
He did a lovely job on your cover, I thought.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Makes the book all that. I like books that look nice too, so it's got, it's an interesting cover. You're just gonna have to find someone else now to illustrate your covers.
Kristen. Kristen's amazing.
Yeah, Kristen's an artist too.
No.
So any more questions?
Actually, I have one question about in the story, where I think Betsy's draws a picture of Mark's graduation that doesn't really happen because she's in the picture and Mark. Can you just talk a little bit about that, because it seems that Mark somehow she's feeling Mark's kind of anger at his own graduation when she draws that, and yet both her and Mark use that picture later as a means of reconciling their situation. Or that's my impression, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that sort of that picture and the anger and the reconciliation.
Well, I think Betsy drew that picture because she was just so upset at having to miss Mark's graduation because of the way she was, and she just wanted to have that image down on paper so that she could at least kind of imagine that happening. And
But she hides it away.
yeah, she hides it away because she's afraid that it will upset Mark even more if he could see this picture of Mark and Betsy doing this thing together that they would never be allowed to do. But then she ends up giving it to her sister Laura because Laura really likes it and the power that it and the meaning that it conveys. And Laura gives it the title A Walk of Hope. And I've actually renamed chapter 23, formerly chapter 22 in my first edition, A Walk of Hope, because it's the chapter in which Betsy gives Laura the picture, and it's also the chapter in which Betsy has finally won the court right to go out sometimes from Sunny Palms to see more of the world. So it's basically this walk really is a walk of hope for Betsy as well, especially since she has just been reunited with her whole family, including Laura.
I'm very impressed in your book how such a clear picture you give of the difficulties that the siblings go through. Laura trying to come to terms with Betsy's condition. You do a very good job of that.
Good.
So, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. A quick intro about me. I'm a writer like David. He's taught me a lot over the time. We've had some time together. I wanted to finish just by saying a couple of quick things. This is a marvellous gift to yourself. You know, it's an amazing achievement to write a piece of work. There's a lot of people, maybe some people here who think, I can write a book one day. I've got a good idea to write a book. But they haven't done it. Or they've started and they haven't finished. And you not only have finished, but you've polished and crafted, as you mentioned before. And that's an amazing thing, to get to the end point. And you said, you talked about dealing with writer's block, but you keep writing. Well, that's a writer. You are a writer through and through. So it's an incredible gift to you. It's a tremendous gift to you guys, too. I say when people read my books and they say, who are you writing for? And I say, well, I'm writing for the page and I'm writing for myself, but I write for the people closest to me as well. It's an incredible insight into this young man. It's a unique story. It's a story that is one that the best fiction always explores bubbles that people don't necessarily get a window into or they don't see. But it's a great opening of the writer's heart, to produce any piece of work, even if it's on Mars or even if it's in Harry Potter's world. That's an opening of J.K. Rowling's heart to people closest to her. And that's what you've done for these people as well. So it's a great gift to you guys. And one more thing, I think it's a great gift to the literary world generally, because if anyone's keen on literature and following, what happens in the literary world, there's a massive call for diversity. Diversity of voices. And I've been lucky enough that people have said, my work sort of reflects that. But I've always said that I should, a little bit of background, I have a son who is on the autism spectrum who's now 15. And I've written stories that are first person of people on the spectrum. And people have been very kind in saying, that those voices are very true and very authentic. But I say to people, I'm sort of writing the books that my son will never write, that, I wish he could write those stories. So the call for diversity in literature is huge. And this is a diverse voice. This is a true voice of diversity. And that needs to be treasured. And it needs to be held up. And you guys have a role to play in that too. Every author, and David knows this too, every author needs people to talk about their stuff. So when you read this book, and if you've read it already, talk to other people about it. And put something down online. Go to Goodreads. David's done a fantastic job of putting his stuff up on Goodreads, and people can connect with it there. On Amazon, on Goodreads, on any of these places where you can talk about it, on Twitter, on social media, do that. Because again, voices like David's, literary voices like David's need to be heard. So it's a tremendous gift to you, a tremendous gift to these folks, a tremendous gift to the literary world generally, mate. So congratulations. I know we all look forward to your next one. And I would be remiss in not saying, of course, we've got some copies here, so for anyone who hasn't purchased one, you should get your hands on one. Take it home and talk about it after you've finished it. So thanks, mate.